Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Bell, Leading with Purpose, where we share real stories from education leaders shaping schools and lives across the country. Today, we're honored to host Dr. Michael Maclin, Superintendent of St. Louis Special School District. Serving over 25,000 students, it's the largest school district in the state of Missouri. Dr. Maclin shares his journey from counselor to superintendent, his belief in empathy-driven leadership, and insights on navigating complex board relationships with trust, transparency, and purpose. Stay tuned. This conversation reminds us that leadership starts and ends with people. Welcome to Beyond the Bell, Leading with Purpose. I'm Jim Cummins, along with my co-host, Dr. Nathan Manley. We're the founders of Learning Intensified Foundational Training for Education, better known as LIFTED. One of our core values is people first. School improvement starts with people, not programs. And our podcast series is designed to help leaders learn from other leaders who are walking or who have walked the same journey. We strive to bring encouragement and support to leaders by giving light to stories and experiences of leaders who are demonstrating leadership in action and making a positive impact every day. Nathan, how are you getting along?
I'm doing well, Dr. Cummins. I've been excited about the work that we've been doing on an upcoming seminar where we talk about leadership principles and have some guys over for lunch and just be able to network and continue to collaborate and grow together.
Awesome. I had an opportunity yesterday to get back out to the softball field after helping Katie coach for a few years. I hadn't been around the field, and it was good just to get back out around the kids. So, yeah, life is good. Hey, today we're honored to have as our guest Dr. Michael Maclin. I had the opportunity to work with Doc and his team in the spring of 2024. I can tell you it was a great experience for me in many regards. Dr. Maclin was thrust into an extremely challenging position just from so many aspects. But he has just an infectious, positive, can-do attitude that helped him grow into that role. And I just know that driving across the state several times from Neosho to St. Louis, that's a long drive, but there was just a little bit of a buzz about the opportunity that I was going to get to see Dr. Maclin again, and his infectious nature was just going to fill me up, even though I was there to do some other work. So really excited. So I'm going to give you a little bit of his bio. It's impressive. Doc was in St. Louis Special School District, serving as Executive Director of Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Accessibility. In October 23, he was moved into that role as acting, and then in January of 24, actually became the Superintendent of St. Louis Special, and I'll let him kind of share what that is. But he's been a teacher, a counselor, served in various roles, Parkway School District, U-City, Maplewood, Richmond Heights, was a principal. Now he's an adjunct for Missouri Baptist. And I was excited. I mean, I was impressed here. He's been an educational consultant for LA, Philadelphia, and Dallas school districts. I mean, that alone is impressive. But then you add the fact that he's been on TED Talk. So, my goodness, Doc, it's great to have you with us.
I'm great to be here. You know, Nathan and Jim, this is just a great opportunity. And it's good to be here. You guys don't know, and Jim, I know that you said driving across the ocean, you were anxious and happy because I was going to fill your bucket, but you don't know how much you're filling my bucket, right? And so you never know, iron sharpens iron. And so I appreciate that. Nathan, it's great to meet you. You've heard great things about you, and so excited to be here.
So I think many of our listeners are not going to know really what St. Louis Special School District is, and it is so impressive what you all do. Can you share what you do, the roles you serve?
Yeah, I think special school district, it's really a one of a kind. And I'm going to take you back just a little bit, and I'm not going to belabor it, but just a little bit. Special school district was formed really in December of 1957 after St. Louis County voters then overwhelmingly, Nathan and Jim, approved a referendum establishing a countywide school district to support the needs of students with disabilities. And this was very powerful because, you think about IDEA, that was not established until 1975. So really in 57, this was cutting edge. This was really, app computers before computers. This was a unique way to provide the services really in St. Louis County. And so for your listeners here, every student in St. Louis County who has a disability, special school district St. Louis County provides the services for that student. And so we go and we serve our students in our partner school districts. We also operate or have here the federal Carl Perkins Vocational Act was passed in 1984. And so we also have two very, very large technical schools that also serve the county with almost 22 or 23 trades. And so it is unique. We are the largest school district in the state of Missouri, $630 million operating budget right now. And so we are very excited. In 2015, SSD won its first Missouri Quality Award then, and then continue to do those pieces afterwards.
Yeah, and am I right? About 25,000 students under your care and 5,000-ish staff?
You are correct. Right about 25,000 students and right about 6,000 staff.
6,000, yeah.
About 6,000 staff, full-time and part-time, who meet the needs of students daily. And so, yes, it is a large task to ensure that students are getting what they need, but we have a lot of dedicated individuals here. I understand that I'm the superintendent, but Nathan and Jim, I can tell you, I cannot do what I do without the many individuals here who make impact and serve our students. Not only our individuals who serve our students, but our operations side. I think that a lot of times people on the operations side don't get the credit that they deserve. We don't have lives, right? We don't have kids getting to school. We don't have bus drivers without our operations, and so those pieces are key.
It's good stuff, and the mark of a good leader there. Kudos to everything that runs that and such.
Thank you, Nathan.
So as you were developing your leadership style, watching others coming up through the ranks, talk to us a little bit about those that made an impression on you, molded you, things that you saw that, hey, I want to be that person.
There are a number of leaders who coming up through the ranks. I wanted to be a guidance counselor. I just love responsive services. Actually, to tell you the truth, I just wanted to be an elementary school guidance counselor. I love the little kids, and I love just doing that work. And I think, sometimes, Jim and Nathan, people see things in you that you don't see in yourself. And there were a number of leaders who I saw their niche, and not necessarily all from the educational space, because there were leaders who I saw in my athletic path as coaches. And I would see coaches take individuals who never thought they could tackle, never thought they could catch a football, never thought they could be disciplined enough to make it a practice. And that coach would motivate them to be able to do some of those kind of things. And for me, I saw those pieces. I also saw some great principals and some great superintendents who I felt was something that could relate everyone. And so I think that really went to my leadership style. People talk a lot about servant leader. My leadership style is really more the empathy leader, because I firmly believe, Nathan and Jim, that just because of the differences that we have, we may not truly understand what it may be like to have our differences that may, in this world, unfortunately, bring many challenges. But I don't think we have to have the same difference to understand the challenge. Let me give you an example. The New York Times posted an article a couple of weeks ago that said 83% of women are afraid to run at night. Okay, so I'm just giving an example, right? Well, I'm not afraid to run at night as identify as a male, right? But I know what it's like to be discriminated against. And so I don't have to be a female. I know that same feeling. And that was what makes me an empathy leader.
So, I mean, your organization is large, and one of the things that Nathan and I talk about all the time, and in our work, is how do you build capacity in leaders? You cannot lead personally 6,000 people for the service of 25,000, but you can lead and you can coach and mentor some. What does that look like for you? How do you pass that down?
Well, I think for me, it's about being able to lead with integrity and insight. And so there are a couple of, I think, non-negotiables that leaders should always have, and how you coach those pieces into leaders. I think the first, when we talk about, clearly being able to have insight, lead with breadth and depth, understanding the assignment now, but where that assignment is moving to. And so for me, not being able to touch all 6,000, you're right, Jim, and not being able to have contact with all 6,000, Nathan, for me, knowing that the individuals who serve on my leadership team are those catalysts of individuals, right? And so looking at those individuals is almost like stems and arms that have the same vision and doing the same work, for me, is important.
That's good. I had a follow-up question there, but the intentionality that you have, and you mentioned empathy, and how much compassion that goes into that as well. And I'm sure while you lead with the empathy, the compassion just pours out, and you setting that example, and how fulfilling it must be when you see somebody that you lead, somebody that you coach, doing the same things and showing compassion.
Yeah, I think, and to your point, there is a difference between sympathy and empathy. Jim and Nathan, Dr. Maclin doesn't have sympathy for anyone, but I do have empathy for all, because I understand the challenges that individuals may face, and I have that empathetic lens to be able to do that. So I think those pieces are key, which I think that's what's the hard part about leadership, because there's a delicate balance. There's still accountability, right, with those pieces. And I say all the time, the reason why we have board policy is because somewhere around the line, someone has violated something. We don't just have policy to have it. I mean, come on, Nathan and Jim, right? I mean, you guys know, right? I mean, someone has done something that needed to put policy in place, right? And so, how do you lead through that empathetic / accountability piece? And that's the delicate challenge for a leader.
Yeah, and I think, we talk about in the world of servant leadership, people sometimes think that's soft, and the foundation is serving a mission, and part of that mission is helping everybody be all that they can be, and sometimes that takes a tough conversation. And so I think I think you hit the nail on the head when you say you can be empathetic, but you still have accountability. You can be empathetic, but you still have a calling that is the service of those 25,000 students.
No matter your biblical beliefs or where you are, I will say that Jesus was the strongest man on the ever walked this planet, and he never threw a punch.
Yeah, 100%.
Think about that.
Hey, we're gonna shift gears a little bit, because we want to have a topic each podcast that addresses something that superintendents are likely dealing with. And in conversation with you, you mentioned something about let's talk about board relationships. Now, I will put the caveat here that not only do you have board relationships, but you've got relationships with the people that elect your board people. So you'll have to describe the structure first, and then just share some things that others can learn from your dealing with boards.
Yeah, I think so, Jim, you're exactly right. So special school district, we have 7 board members who have governance responsibilities, which are pretty typical of a traditional school board, except that they are not themselves, don't campaign. They are elected. And so who are they elected by? Well, in the 90s, there were a number of superintendents in special school districts, and so there was just some challenges. And so there was a governing body that was instituted, which is called Governing Council. So those 22 governing council members, which are one board members from my partner school district. So every partner school district has one board member who serves on what's called Governing Council. They elect the board members who serve on SSD's board. And so that is a little different dynamic because not only do I have the 7, but I also have the 22. And so typically a superintendent would work with those 7, but I work with those 22, and my 7 also do a great job of working with their sub-districts. And so each one of my 7 have a number of sub-districts that are divided up. And so each of those 22 board members are part of one of those sub-districts. And so we do a great job of communicating with those pieces. But it is an additional layer of governance. And those individuals who are on our governing council should never be surprised, just like the 7 individuals who are on my board of education. And so that constant communication piece is key. And then also really just the touch points. Our governing council is in charge of approving our strategic plan, our CSIP, and also our budget. And so we want to ensure that they have all the knowledge and transparent information with them so that they have what they need to make the decisions they need as they go into the executive approval process.
So talk a little bit about, because for many of the listeners, it's just going to be the 7, but the example you have, we can use to demonstrate your leadership style. You got 2 districts, let's say, so 2 people on the governing council that want you to do this for students. And you've got 2 that have a completely different demographic and want you to do X for. You've got to try to satisfy both of them. You can't pick sides. And I saw this as a new superintendent 20 some years ago. I had 2 factions of a board, and they'd come in and want me to pick a side. They'd chew on the other one. How do you balance that different need from different board members?
Yeah, I think the first thing, Jim, and that's a great question. I'm going to get there, but I think the first thing is that every decision that is made, and it sounds like a cliche, but every decision that is made has to be rooted in student achievement. Has to be rooted. It has to be in the needs of students, the success of students. So I think that's number one. And believe it or not, when you start to peel back those layers to really see, when you start making hard staffing decisions and you start peeling back layers to see those individuals who don't have direct contact with students, right? Then you get to really see and talk about the strategic process and strategic alignment and strategic plans as it relates to decision making. So I think that's number one. I think overall, I think individuals don't necessarily understand, and I want your listeners to grasp this. The board superintendent relationship. There was a survey that was given to 100 board members across 33 states, and this was just a couple of days ago. And 100 board members across 33 states highlighted that the board superintendent relationship is arguably the most critical factor in effective school governance. Now grasp that. Grasp that. Just think about that for a minute. Board superintendent relationship, the most critical factor in governance. Not legislation, right? Not laws, but the relationship. And when that relationship is strained, you see lack of trust. You see organizations crumble for whatever reasons. And so for me, it's important that we have the relationship not only with the governing council, but then also with my board. So to answer your question, getting back to your question, Jim, being very, very transparent, about decisions that are being made, including those indecisions, knowing those decisions are hard. I firmly believe that when you're working with, my case, the Board of Education, and let me say this, I want individuals to know who are listening here that I am blessed with an amazing Board of Education. I have 7 individuals here who are truly about students, which is key. And so making sure that we're all on the same page and moving forward. And there are some decisions that the board makes through governance, but there are also decisions that the superintendent and the organization will make it. So I think being transparent about those pieces are key.
So, can I add in here
Yes.
for both of you? Experience with that relationship, those listening, there's a lot of, I think I saw we've got 550 districts, even in the state of Missouri. There are a lot of first time or even within 3-year superintendents out there. Knowing that that's the most important relationship, what advice do both of you give that person aspiring or that person starting?
I mean, I will give you my go-tos. My go-tos, which will always be my go-tos. My number one is to build and establish trust through transparent communication. There is nothing like establishing weekly communication protocols. So I have a meeting with my president and vice president weekly. From that off meetings, we have every Friday, there's communication going out, transparent communication that's going out to my board members. I also believe in that never surprising the board. And so communicating about, those potential challenges or changes. But I also encourage two-way communication. You can't make decisions about people unless those people are part of the decision-making process.
Mm.
Right? You ain't hear the saying, if you're not at the table, then you're probably on the menu.
Nice.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Right. So that two-way communication to encourage and listen to perspectives is key for me.
Yeah. No, I would 100% echo that, and I think, one of the things that you learn early is never try to tell a different story to different people, because you can't keep it straight. So the easiest thing to do is always just be straightforward, stay with the facts, and that way that if you told one board member this and you're asked the same question, you're going to tell them the exact same thing. So I think that's the transparency, that's the integrity that goes with the position. But I think, reflecting on my career, the thing that I probably didn't do a great job of is individual contact with board members, keeping in touch as much as I should. I had good communications with board presidents. I always asked questions or answered questions that were asked, but I did not spend a lot of time with individual board members. I was raised that you're paid to do a job, and I always felt like my job was to be in the school doing those things. I would probably do that a little differently in hindsight. But the other thing that I always tried to go to, and I had to learn this early, because like I said, I had 3 board members come on, a brand new superintendent. They were elected to come on the board and change things. And they were aggressive. But what I learned was you have to take the emotions out of the equation and take it back to the root cause that Doc talked about, and that's the students. So take your emotions out. You're mad about this decision that was made, that decision that was made. Those are adult things. We need to focus on the student things right now. And always just trying to remember, and it goes a little bit back to Doc's point about empathy, because you have to empathize a little bit with the situation they're in. In that case, they were just elected by a community to come in and shake things up because the community thought things were going south. So to empathize with the position that they were in and understand where they were coming from with some of their aggressiveness.
Great point.
But yeah, I mean, you gotta, and I think the other thing, my mom was a lifetime educator, high school principal, then got on the board. And the thing that she learned was that being on the board is different than being an educator. And the community, when they come on, a lot of times their view of school was when they sat in a chair in the school building. And I think some superintendents are intimidated to be a coach of school board members, but there is a certain amount of that has to go on. Doc, you agree that sometimes they just have to be coached into their role?
100%. A school board member and myself walked to school yesterday. Said, hey, some challenges going. Let's go walk it together, collectively, right? So we can collectively, at the end of the day, collectively to take a look at what some challenges are, or perceived challenges, to be able to solve that. But I think to your point, and my work coaching and really working with my board, and again, I understand that my board, at the end of the day, that I am the only employee of the board. But again, I would encourage any new or young superintendents to ensure that they have the clear shared vision for student achievement around district priorities. If you can bring it back to that at the end of the day and review that progress regularly. We'll have board retreats where we have those pieces, and sometimes an executive session isn't going to get in. And so we have to come together for 8 hours on a Saturday to be able to reestablish some of these pieces. And I think that's the focal part for next steps.
I think one of the great examples, I forget who shared it with me early in my career, said when board member A comes to you and says that their close friend said that the cafeteria is always serving cold green beans, that is not a crisis. And you have to be willing to tell the board member that is not a crisis. Now, if you've had 50 complaints that the green beans are cold, you need to look into that, but you have to have the courage to tell the board member, I'll look into it, but we probably don't have a crisis yet in the cafeteria.
Well, something that Dr. Maclin mentioned kind of subtly there, but Jim, you and I were talking about it over lunch today, bringing them back to that vision, to the goals, to this is important because it aligns with what we're about and who we are. And so many times that's not taught to us. We get into leadership and it's not throwing spaghetti against the wall. It's not random acts. It's intentional acts with everything. And the more clarity we have of our own values, but certainly our organizational values and our mission and vision and goals, the easier it is to respond to those things, the easier it is to make decisions. And so, you mentioned that, Dr. Maclin, but that is huge as well, knowing this is the hill I die on versus, well, this one doesn't matter.
Well, and I think to your point, Nathan, I think, we did an exercise really to go from 6 or 7 core values down to 3. Instead of doing, 20 things well, let's just do one thing great, was the conversation that, my board and I delved into. And I think emphasizing, and I know we've been on this for just a minute, but emphasizing really the worthness of a cause, right? I'm a former social studies guy, love it through and through. And Woodrow Wilson always said, I would rather fail at a plan than succeed in a plan that's going to ultimately fail. So think about that.
Yeah.
And so when we're putting those strategic initiatives together, I will often ask in the room, who are our customers? Let's be clear about this. Our customers are students.
Yeah.
So how do we keep that focus?
Hey, great stuff. I want to get on to, I get the opportunity still to see Doc every week, or as much as we can attend in our Friday virtual Bible studies. And so that's great to stay in touch. But it kind of leads to the next question. One of the things that we're big on is the well-being of staff, students, but the only way that we can be responsible for others' well-being if we're responsible for our own. Talk a little bit about how you take care of yourself, how you decompress, how you empty that backpack that gets heavy sometimes.
Yeah, so I think a couple of things. I want to be vulnerable here for a little bit, Jim and Nathan, and say that, in my first really couple of years, I didn't do a very good job of this. I mean, I was constantly here, constantly there, now trying to separate some of those pieces. I have just now started really to detach and try to step away at some times just to try to get mental clarity. Someone brought me a cup the other day that said, "You can't refill a picture. You can't refill a cup if your picture's empty." Right. And so for me, I think those pieces are key, being able to step away. And I was doing some things, guys, in a leadership lesson that I often think about in really setting the image, because I would tell my staff, hey, you have to step away. You need to go and get your mind. You need to refill your cup. But I was sending emails at 2 and 3 in the morning. Right. Right. And I wasn't doing it, Nathan or Jim. Let me say this. I wasn't doing it because I expected them to respond at 2 and 3 in the morning, but I was up because the organization was on my mind. And I wanted to move this off of my checks box to get to the next thing, but it wasn't being a very good leader. Right. Now I may send those emails, but I wait till at least till about 5.
Yeah.
Okay. About 5 or 6, right? Till the bus comes, right? Once I hear the first bus come, then I know. Right, to send it. So I think that's number one. I think, and then Dr. Cummins, you talked about the Bible study. I always believe that no matter who you are, you have to be able to refill your cup from something that where your cup is not getting filled. So you got to have the delineation of stepping away to that higher being, to that higher power, whatever that may be. At the end of the day, and then I think the last thing is that I experienced, suddenly some health issues. And, it wasn't because of, after every test, it was because of stress. I mean, stress impacts people different ways. And so for me, just being able to take that step away and to be able to regroup. And I really felt myself, when I didn't do that, I felt myself like almost on an edge. And it was just the anxiety of the day to day and what those pieces really mean. So those pieces are key.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing, because so many of the listeners are going to feel that same way, have that burden, and just you being vulnerable and saying, "Hey, I had to learn. It was too much." Yeah. And plus, if we want our staff to do it, we got to model it.
Yeah.
We got to model it, right? And if we're there all the time and we're saying, hey, you need to go home and be with your family. Well, Doc, you're still there, and the lights are on.
Yes. And again, it's just learning. It's a learning.
So as we kind of wind this thing down, if there was one piece of wisdom, now you don't have the gray hair yet. I tell people you have to earn these gray hairs. But I know you're wise. What one piece of wisdom would you leave our listeners with?
I would say that the greatest wisdom for me as a superintendent has been reaching out, listening, learning, just being quiet, and getting in a room with other people who have done it before. I'll get around people who have done this for a long time, Nathan or Jim, and I won't say a word for an hour. I'll just write. I think the ability to learn from others is a lost art in our world, because we're constantly on the go, and we're constantly driving, we're constantly moving forward. Find someone. I had a great superintendent years ago, almost 20 years ago, and she would say, go find someone who's doing your job, but doing it better. I don't care where they are, and go spend some time. That was your professional development. You weren't sitting in a workshop. You weren't sitting in a series, but you were finding someone who was doing your job better, and you were just going to soak it up. And so for me, I have done that. And just for me, that is still my greatest learning. And that would be my wisdom, because you're going to come into challenges, no matter what they are, highs and lows, that you're going to need to provide some expertise. So I think that's number one. I think number two is, I had a great leader tell me this early on, don't be a chameleon. Be true to who you are. Who you are and what you stand for, be true to that Monday through Sunday. And if you can do those two pieces, find someone who's doing it, get some wisdom, be true to who you are, I think at the end of the day, you'll be okay.
You'll be very well.
You'll be very well.
Yeah.
You'll be very well. Right?
Nathan, anything final for Doc before we wrap it up?
No, and just so good. That's just good life advice. That's good. Again, we talk about it quite a bit. The first question that we ask when we're coaching others, because we believe it's difficult to lead if you don't know what you believe in, and it's tell me what you believe in. And I think because of sometimes the way the world is and the way we don't have time to reflect, most time I can't answer that question. And they're like, well, this is where we got to start. So that's good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you so much for sharing. It has been an honor to meet you. Dr. Cummins speaks very highly of you, and he lights up when he mentions your name.
Yeah. Well, I want to say this, and it's amazing how paths cross. There's 9.9 billion people in the world. So I firmly believe, Nathan and Dr. Cummins, Jim, that when you meet somebody, it's not about chance. I firmly believe that. And Dr. Cummings actually came into my life at a time, my life and actually SSD's life at a time where we were in some pivotal states and needed to do some things. And he was very, 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 very influential. And in a couple of times before this, I've been interviewed in a couple of different spaces and places. And I give his name as a person who was very, very beneficial just to those thought processes. Because sometimes you see things, but you need another set of eyes, right? To really be able to take a look at those things. And so he was very, very beneficial. So, Jim, I want individuals to know on this call that I will always be indebted to you for those pieces and what you've done for special school districts.
Thank you. It's very kind, and it's mutual. Nathan, you want to wrap us up?
Yeah, I'd love to. We appreciate the listeners. We hope you enjoyed it. We know you did. We know if there's certainly some wisdom to gain from Dr. Maclin and his passion. We look forward to the continued episodes that we'll have. We hope you tune into those and that you'll share and like this, and just continue to lift others as you're being lifted. Until next time, thank you.